Okay guys, we know that contour means outline. The direct translation in French to contour is outline. So we're going to make a contour drawing of a pear very lightly on your paper. Contour drawing of our pear. And our lesson today is going to be focusing on cross contour. All that means is that we're going across the contour of the pear. We're going across it. So remember when we drew facial proportions, we divided our face in half vertically, and we drew our face in half horizontally. You're going to make these lines really light. In the case of the pear, anything below this halfway point, anything from here down, is going to mimic this arc right here. I'm going to make an indicator right there. I don't want you to do that. I'm just showing you this arc is this arc. Anything below this line follows this arc. Anything above this line is going to follow this arc. I'll do another one up here, but don't you guys do that. If our light source is over here, our highlight falls along this side of the pear, our midtones are going to be in the middle, and our shadow is going to be on the right side of the pear. On this bottom half of the pear, on the right side, this is going to be where we make our darkest marks, mimicking that line down here. So starting on the right with a pretty heavy hand, easing off on the pressure, and disappearing off to the left. Heavy hand, medium pressure, disappear. Heavy hand, medium pressure, disappear. As you get towards the center, you're going to start to straighten out those marks a little bit and have less of an arc, but you're still going to follow that same pattern of pressure. In the middle, I'm making straight marks right here. Still heavy pressure, medium, light. But up on this half of the pear, I'm going to start to curve my line to mimic that rainbow mark up there. Heavy pressure, medium, light. Heavy pressure, medium, light. Heavy pressure, medium, light. Now I can fill in some of these gaps with that same pressure. Remember, it's always easier to make it darker after the fact. It's a lot harder to go lighter. So I would start fairly, with a fair amount of pressure, but not too much. This is hatching. We're hatching across the contour of our pear. You can start to fill in what is now the shadow of our pear. In the middle, continuing to mimic those lines, we're going to do medium pressure and a little further apart. Straightening out that line as you come towards the middle, and starting to arc it more like a rainbow in the top half of the pear. And then towards the left, we can add a few more lines, super light, much further apart, much lighter pressure. Straightening in the middle, arcing toward a rainbow on the left. And then you can come back through and you can erase the left side. Since that's our highlight, I'm actually going to erase this middle line. I don't like the way that looks. That was just to show you where our midpoint was, our midtones were. Just going to spruce that up. Because I'm making a more finalized picture, I'm going to erase the extra stuff I have on here. We don't need that now. It's pretty obvious that our light source is coming from the left. I'm going to add a horizon line or a table. Since our light's coming from the left side, our shadow, our cast shadow, is going to be here on the table on this side of the pear. We can make our stem three-dimensional, adding a little bit of a So there, I'm actually not going to touch the left side of my stem, but I'm going to do the same kind of a heavy medium pressure here. So we're still working with the pear theme just because I think it's an easy shape to work with and understand cross contour. And what we're doing now is, yesterday we made a cross contour drawing of a pear using pencil on white paper. We're going to reverse that so that you understand value a little bit more. I would make a quick sketch of a contour drawing of a pear with a horizon line and with a shadow to start out this next project. Once you have that drawn, you can flip that over and you can take your ebony pencil that was in your package and you can shade anywhere the contour drawing is. You see I didn't do the middle here because I know I don't have any lines there. I can just see where my horizon line is, my table is, my shadow is, and the contour of the pear. Okay, that's on the opposite side. So there's my contour drawing, there's my ebony pencil shading on the back. I'm gonna take the same size black paper that I gave you and I'm gonna line them up perfectly. And we're gonna trace over everything that we have there with some pretty firm pressure. You can see I've probably done this a few times on this exact copy. It's pretty dark. Contour, horizon line, and shadow. So that when you remove them, you might be the only one that can see this. But you can see sort of a ghost image of the pear. Our big takeaway today is what we're doing is implied line. We are not going around the contour of the pear with our white charcoal. That's a big no-no. So the idea is that we have an implied line or an implied edge here. We're never actually tracing the contour. So observing carefully, you're gonna start with the highlights of your pear, just like we did yesterday, with hatching marks going in the direction of the contour of the pear. As you get towards the middle, you can straighten those out, and then you can start to arc more like a rainbow towards the top. Now I'm going to go in and start to fill in some more lines in the empty space. I think having a sharpened pencil works pretty well, so you can have nice clean hatch marks happening here. So you can start to see the shape of my pear starting here. I do have a stem. My stem was pretty 2D, pretty flat. So I'm going to make that more 3D. And arc my stem and make it more 3D. As I get to the middle of my pear, I'm going to go much lighter, much further apart. Easing off on that pressure, continuing to follow that cross contour curve of the pear. And then as I get to the middle to left side, I'm gonna do the same thing, even lighter, even further apart. Maybe you want to come and touch this side of the pear a little bit. Very few marks. Now you're gonna go in and blend so that it doesn't look like three hardcore values. And start to soften. We don't have that straight edge on the left, on the right here. We don't have that straight edge on the right here. So you want to make sure that your marks are definitely all starting in the same spot. The only line I'm giving you permission to draw here is going to be your horizon line so lightly. This is going to ground your image so that it doesn't appear to be floating in space. I know my shadow is here. I'm not going to draw a line around that. Please don't draw a line around that. Instead, I'm going to just super lightly shade around my shadow. You can always add more white, but once you lay that down, it's a lot harder to get it back. I'm going to go in a left to right, very soft direction here, which is different. It's going to differentiate my marks from the way that I angled them for the pear, the upside down rainbow and the rainbow. Super soft. Same direction, nice and clean off the page. Pretty cool. So fun. I'm gonna go back in and rework my pear now. Get some more of those mid-tones in there. Still have to do my stem. And then just dissipate the highlights. Super light. Now my stem is going to do the same thing. I'm going to have the highlights on the right side of my stem, fill those in, and then mid-tone a little further apart, a little lighter pressure, arcing, and then the highlights. Maybe there's a bit of a shadow where the stem is exiting the pear, but maybe we can see a little bit of highlight on the other side. I can continue to work on this easily for another 10 or 15 minutes, and you should too. The first thing you're going to do is flip your image over to the blank side. Grab your ebony pencil and at an angle, you're going to very lightly shade, very lightly and evenly shade. Make sure your pencil is definitely at an angle so you have a nice smooth application of the graphite on paper. You'll want to sort of memorize or keep checking where your image is on the other side so that you're not adding the graphite where you don't need to. You just want to stay on top of the images that you're going to transfer onto your black paper. Now it's helpful for me to grab my black paper and size my image and see if it's going to fit with the image that I chose. Sometimes that might mean flipping the two if they're cutting it a little bit close and making sure it's all lined up properly. Yep, that's gonna fit. I'll place this on top. I know I have a little bit of wiggle room below the pear, so I'll slide that down, get it exactly where I want to. Make sure it's all lined up before you start the transfer. Then you're just going to take any pencil. A Dixon Ticonderoga is fine. I actually think if it's a little bit dull, that works out better. And you're going to trace any information that you think is important. So going along the contour of the fruit or object, whatever it may be, including the shadow, the cast shadow, and where the shadow actually lightens up. You might want to indicate that so you know how to gradually transition your shadow. I made a couple of dots on some of the areas where the pear may have had an indent, just something I want to make note of. This is sped up, so make sure you take your time. When you're finished, you will be able to see a very light tracing of your image on your black paper. If that's what it looks like, you've done it right. Now, before I begin, I'm looking back and forth at the original photograph, sort of really looking at the highlight, midtone, and shadow, and where I want to begin my cross contour lines. Remember, this is implied edge. We are never going to draw the pencil line, the graphite transfer line, the contour image of the object. We are just drawing the cross contour. So I know that the right side of my pear is the highlight, the brightest part of my pear. So I'm starting on that side, working my way up the pear. Remember to pay attention to the directional marks of the pear. When you're getting up towards the top, you're going to arc it more like a rainbow. In the middle, it's more horizontal, straight, and then down the bottom, it's more like an upside down rainbow. It's still pretty bright right here, so I'm going to go ahead and continue to add some highlights in the middle of the pear, more towards the top half. And remembering to angle my marks along the pear so that it really gives that believable round shape. And I just keep going and working my way up by hatching all the way up the pear. So you can see I'm carefully studying and trying to see where my graphite transfer lines are. I'm finding my stem, and the stem also has the highlight on the right side of the stem. You really want to make sure that you're looking at your photograph, that you're not just making this up. And now I'm just making sure to blend my tones so that it doesn't look like divider lines in between, and trying to get some more smoother transitions happening there. Now I'm moving on to the next pear, and similar concept, the highlight is still on the right side, and angling the lower half of my pear like the upside down rainbow. As I come to the middle, I'm going to straighten out those lines, work my way up the top, and arc them more like a rainbow, following that cross contour of the pear. Really make sure that you're looking back and forth from the original photo to your drawing the entire time. Remember to apply the same concept to your stem. Now, this is an important area to pay close attention to, because that transition from the pear in the front, in the foreground, to the pear in the back, it goes from light to mid-tone to shadow, right on that front pear, right to a highlight on the pear behind it. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention to those cross contour lines so that there can be a transition between the pairs. Now, keep in mind where your shadow is, and your cast shadow on the table, your horizon line, and you're just kind of carefully shading around your shadow. You're not drawing the line of your shadow, you're shading around it with an even tone. You can always make it darker, or in this case, whiter, but I would start with smooth tones. And I think what looks nice here is that my shading in the background here is just completely horizontal. There's no arc to it. That sort of separates my line quality from the arc marks that were happening in my pear, which is going to differentiate the foreground the table from the pairs. And now is a good time to step back from your drawing and go back and start to blend those gradations for much smoother transitions.